The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 160 with Spider Miller, 2015 and 17 Walker Cup captain.
I learned as captain, that you have to start earlier in the week to get ready to win. I believe that you do not win by accident. I think you have to be prepared mentally to win.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast. I'm Jeff Pellizzero, your host. And this week, we once again have an incredible guest from the world of golf. We've got Spider Miller, who is not only a highly decorated amateur player himself, he won the 1996 and 1998 Mid-Amateur Championships, but he also played on the 1999 Walker Cup team, and most recently was the captain for the 2015 and 2017 Walker Cup team. We're in the wake of the President's Cup, which just happened this past weekend in New Jersey at Liberty National, and it was really cool to see the teams, you know, these guys playing like we see in the Ryder Cup, see them play for their country and playing together as a unit as opposed to individuals. And so we get to talk to Spider about the history of some of these events and specifically the Walker Cup and also just his, lessons learned as a captain, but also his experience as a player on the Walker Cup. So it was really cool to talk to him about that and some of the guys that are coming up, the guys that, names that we should be looking out for over the next couple of years that are most likely going to be on the PGA Tour. Then I had a chance to talk to Spider about the relationship that he had with the number one man in the world of golf, which is Arnold Palmer. Spider and Arnold were very good friends, and so we get to hear some cool stories about Arnie and just some of the lessons that Spider learned, both as a golfer, but also just as a human being from Arnie and the way that he conducted himself. And, we've all heard so many of these different stories, but it was really cool to hear this firsthand coming from a guy who knew him so well. So it's just an incredible interview. It was an honor to be able to chat with Spider, and such a great, fun-loving guy that I'm sure you're really going to enjoy this episode. Before we do jump into the interview, I want to say a quick thanks to our sponsor for this week, which is Scratch TV. And if you haven't had a chance to go check out Scratch's new second season of The Adventures in Golf, I highly recommend going and doing that. They've got some great episodes of Eric Anderslang just traveling around the world, really going to different locations and telling different stories and checking out different golf courses to just bring the world of golf into us to see things that we may not see on a regular basis or ever get to see or hear of. And so he just brings in some short little stories and experiences from the world of golf. So go to scratchtv.com and then you can find all their different social channels there, which is where you can watch their different videos and the Adventures in Golf series. All right, let's get to our interview with the captain of the champion 2017 Walker Cup, Spider Miller. Spider Miller, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Jeff. It's my pleasure.
Well, I have to get out in the airwaves. The first question that probably everyone is asking themselves is, where did the name Spider come from?
Well, you want the real story?
I would love the real story.
I have a real version and the fun version. The real version is I am one of 11 children, and I'm the middle child of 11. My parents were good Catholics, obviously. And my pop was a small-town businessman. He had a hardware store, a tire store, and he was partners with his brother. But anyway, I apparently used to crawl all over the shelves in his hardware store when I was 2 and 3 years old. And someone nicknamed me Spider, and it stuck, having all the brothers and sisters that I do. So followed me to college. I'm from Indiana, went to school at IU, where I live now. And after a certain period of time, I just put my hand out and said, I'm Spider. Because if I said my name is John, someone I know would invariably say that's not his name. His name's Spider. So now you have it.
It's amazing how those nicknames stick. I've got a couple that I won't share on the airwaves that I've gotten from my family. My mom's also one of 11 kids, so,
Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I know how that goes, and I was named by a couple of my uncles back in the day, so those nicknames can last a lifetime, that's for sure.
Your mom and I know what it's like then. I'm sure she was similar in growing up as I was.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, Spider, we just recently, this past weekend, got to see the President's Cup, airing here in the States and across the world. And you were the captain of the 2015-2017 Walker Cup. And I think a lot of the listeners, most of them are golf advocates and know a lot about golf. And so some of them may know what the Walker Cup is, but just for the broader audience, could you explain kind of what the Walker Cup is? We saw a team event this past weekend, the U.S. versus the internationals, but what is the Walker Cup? We know the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup, but what's the Walker Cup?
Yeah, actually, the Walker Cup was a genesis for both certainly for the Ryder Cup and probably, the Ryder Cup, then the President's Cup is very recent. But the Walker Cup began as a competition between the amateur players of the United States and those of any other country. Initially, it was conceived as an idea in 1920, and it was conceived by George Herbert Walker, who's the maternal grandfather of President Bush, 41, great-grandfather, 43. And it was played informally in 1921. And the only teams that showed up were the United States team and Great Britain. And then formally, it was played for the first time formally in 1922 at the National Golf Links. And the invitation was extended to amateur players of all country, and only those from Great Britain and Ireland showed up. So you fast forward to today, and it has remained a competition between the United States and the amateur players of Great Britain and Ireland. And the Ryder Cup began in 1926 as the professional version of what we do with the Walker Cup. And we played it. It was played every year for a while. There was a break from 1940 to 46 for World War II. Then it began again in 47 on every other year on odd number years until today. Basically, it hasn't changed a great deal over that period of time. We play foursomes, which is alternate shot in the morning, and we play 4 matches, 10 players on a team. Ryder Cup has 12. We have had 10 from the beginning. And then we play singles in the afternoon, the first day, and 8 players. So we're sitting 2 players in the morning, the afternoon, and Sunday morning we play 4 more matches of singles, or of alternate shot, or foursomes play, and we sit 2 players. Then the only change that's occurred is Sunday afternoon in singles we play all 10 players, so 26 points.
And what are the regulations on who can play, and how do you go about picking these 10 guys in the current day?
Well, for the United States team, we're picked by the USGA, and we're sponsored by the USGA, and the GB and Ireland team is sponsored by the RNA. And they pick their team, and we pick ours, and ours is done by committee, and the captain does not have a vote. I did not have a vote. I get to express my thoughts to the committee, and then the committee decides who they want to pick, and I'm happy with whomever they pick for me. It's a good process. It works fine.
And is that how it's always been?
Yes, for our side. The GB&I team side does it differently than us, but for the United States team, it's always been picked by a USGA committee, and the committee is called the International Team Selection Committee. And the chairman currently is a gentleman named Tom Hoff from Atlanta, who played college and who played golf in college at Alabama with the great late Jerry Payton.
Nice. Now, I know that, we, with the President's Cup, the Ryder Cup, we see and we hear the professionals talk about how much it means to play for their country, and how a lot of them kind of rank that situation with, playing in a major or winning a major. And you've had the chance to be a captain. You also played in the 1999 Walker Cup. Can you just kind of give us a little bit of an expression of what it meant to you to make the team, to become a captain, and what it means to these players to be able to get on this team?
Well, typically, it is the ultimate achievement as an amateur. And the younger guys that were on this team and on Jimmy's teams, the college players, not always, but typically turn professional sometime within a year or two, or even right away after the Walker Cup. So it is a culmination of their amateur careers most of the time. And it was for me, even though I was always a lifetime amateur. It's the pinnacle of amateur golf. And every amateur player strives to make the team and hopes to make it, and they work hard in order to make the team, and it is a great reward. I don't know how you would classify it. Once you become a professional, whether it certainly it has to help you in obtaining sponsor exemptions and sponsors themselves. So it is a great event, and it's something to play for your country. And the young guys that played for me, this team, their goal should be to make a Ryder Cup team and a President's Cup team and play in the Olympics, and they can do them all. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. In fact, as I was kind of preparing for the show, I went back to look and see how many of the guys on this President's Cup team had been on the Walker Cup. And, I mean, I think there were, I might be wrong on this, but there were at least 6 of them. Spieth, Fowler, Justin Thomas, Matt Kuchar, Dustin Johnson, and Phil. All of those guys played Walker Cup. In fact,
that's right.
In fact, I believe you played with Cooch. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, I did. Cooch and I were on the team together.
So do you have any, I got to ask, do you have any good stories, any very memorable stories from your experience as a player at the Walker Cup?
You know, my partner was Hunter Haas, and he, I told Danny Yates was our captain. I said, why don't you just pair me with Hunter? I think we'll do fine. And neither one of us were long hitters. Hunter was a wonderful putter, and he hit the ball straight. And he told me sometime back before we played this year, he said, you remember him? We never made a bogey. And I didn't realize that. I know we won both our foursomes matches, but apparently we never made a bogey. And that is sort of the secret in foursomes play. You just cannot give someone a hole. It's okay if they make birdies to beat you, but you can't give them a hole by 3 putting or doing something like that. And had a lot of great memories, even though we were beaten. A lot of my friendships endure, and I look forward to always seeing those guys when I get to see them. Everybody's sort of gone their way, and it's always fun when you see one of the guys who was on your team.
Is there a specific mindset shift when you're in an event like that compared to just your other typical competitions where it's just you playing together, or just you playing for yourself or playing by yourself?
Well, I think in team competition, you do have to change your mindset a little bit and try and always play your own game. And that's what we did this year in foursomes, and we were successful in winning our foursomes matches. I had the guys, rather than go back to the tee with each other, I said, look, we're used to playing our own ball. The guy who's hitting the drive, go to the tee, and the guy who's going to hit the next shot, going out to the fairway and wait. Don't go back to the tee with the guy. Let him stay in his own thoughts. Let him simulate playing like he knows how to play. And we did, and it worked great. I think it worked very well because we won the foursomes, which does not occur very often, as you know.
Yeah, that's a very interesting strategy. I'd never really thought about that, but to bring a little bit of your normal element into that gameplay seems like a great idea. So the President's Cup, we saw a big gap between the point spread of the U.S. team, the internationals, and I know you guys kind of had a similar situation this year in the Walker Cup. How do you keep the guys focused when you've got a big lead? And what was your lead kind of going into the last day? Was it similar to the situation that we just saw?
Yes. Yeah, we won. We were 2-2 first day, so then we had won 6 of 8 in the singles. So we had eight to their 4, and then the next morning we won 3 more to their 1. So we had 11 to 5, and then in the afternoon we won 8, tied 1, and lost 1. So we had a huge gap. And our guys, you know what I told them? I said, look, we're going to play out each shot. We're going to play to the bitter end. We're going to contest every single stroke. And if a stroke, someone's match pushes us over early, we're going to refrain from crowing. We're going to wait. We're not going to jump around like a bunch of monkeys over there on the sideline. We're going to wait until every shot in every match has been contested and been played. Then we'll think about celebrating, and we did, and it worked out great. The guys played hard all the way to the finish, so that the guys who were out there playing, even though we secured the cup after Stu Hagestad and Norman Jong, our first 2 matches, but the other guys were still out there, and it's only fair that we go out and support them, and that their match has meaning, and it did, and that's what we did. And we won by one of the largest gaps ever.
I would imagine that has to be tough to stay focused, but I love the fact that you set that precedent ahead of time. And, because watching on this past Sunday when the guys were up by such a large margin, and really it kind of took the excitement out of even watching, but knowing that, these other guys are out there playing, they're playing for their countries, and it's a special opportunity. So I would imagine it was the same for you guys. I want to touch a little bit on your own playing career. You won 2 Mid-Am championships in 1996 and 98, and I know you continue to play a lot of golf these days. I hear from a secret source that when you go out to play golf, you play a lot of golf. What is the number of holes, the record number of holes that you've played in a day?
Well, oddly enough, last year I went down with my buddy who you may know from St. Louis, Don Johnson. Don was an executive with Anheuser-Busch. He's a maniac. But him and I went to Frederica down in St. Simon's Island. Mm-hmm. So we get there in the afternoon, and there's very little play, and it's just him and I, and we ripped out probably 45, 50 holes. So the next day we said we're going to see what we can do, and we got in. I kept track. We had to jump around. But we played 101 holes.
Oh my gosh!
So
and this is after playing 45 holes the day before.
Yeah, that was we just did that last year. I was 66.
Unbelievable. So I have
my best part of it was though the second day. Of course, we're playing each other. The second day, Don always thinks he's going to make a hole in one, so he loves to play $1 a yard for hole in ones. And so the second day, we're on the second hole of playing, and he said, today we're going to play $1 a yard for anything over 100 yards. I said, fine. And the next hole, I dunked a 9-iron from 125 yards, cost him 125
That is fantastic. So I have to ask you, being able to play that many holes, and I know that you play a lot of golf, and a lot of the guys and girls listening to the show, are kind of in the same boat. We play a lot of golf, but, not being a professional golfer and having a lot of time to dedicate towards fitness or practice. What's your routine? What's your regimen on a weekly basis? Do you have one fitness-wise, or is golf your main source of exercise?
No, golf is something of a source of exercise, but no, for years, I did a full routine for all through my 30s, all through my 40s, especially in early 50s. Then I had some health problems and set me back. But for 30 years, I got up, or longer than that, and I ride a Schwinn Airdyne for about 45 minutes, and I pulse off and on.
Yeah.
Then I would do two reps of 30 push-ups, and I used to do some pull-ups, but I've gotten a little weaker, so I don't do them. And then I do some crunches and a few lunges. But I've done something every morning, and I've gotten into bike riding. I used to run, but I don't want to get my knees replaced, and I'm worried that my knees may wear out on me. So now I ride a bike, and I ride indoors. I tried riding on the road, but I got run over 3 or 4 times, and I said, "To hell with this! I'm not some crazy dude that's texting run over my ass."
Right.
So now I'm inside.
Very smart.
It's great. It works out fine.
Let's take one quick second here to thank our sponsors for this week's episode of the 18 Strong podcast, which is Rad Roller. The Rad Roller crew makes some of the greatest soft tissue and myofascial release products on the market. You know that here at 18 Strong, we're all about getting you moving better, getting you feeling better, and ultimately getting you to hit a golf ball better, farther, and more consistently. And one way to do that is to take care of your body, make sure that everything is moving properly. Using the Rad Roller products has been a game changer for me and my clients, and I highly recommend you check them out to work on some of those sticky areas, some of those areas that just aren't quite moving the way that they used to, or not moving the way that you need them to in order to swing the club. So definitely go to check out Rad Roller, the Rad Roller products at radroller.com. I'm also very happy to announce that Rad Roller is coming to St. Louis for a certification seminar for any fitness professionals, medical professionals that are interested in the Rad Mobility Level 1 and or the very first Rad Golf Mobility Level 1 certification course. We're going to be hosting it here in St. Louis at the home headquarters of 18 Strong at the Empire Fitness Academy. So if you have any questions on that, either go to radroller.com and search under their education platform, or feel free to email me, Jeff, at 18 Strong. We can get you the details ASAP. All right, let's get back to the interview with Spider. What did you notice with, being the captain with all these younger guys? And obviously that fitness piece has become a big part of the game these days. What's the difference between them and, when you were in your Walker Cup playing days, fitness wise, and maybe not you, because it sounds like you kind of had that as your routine, but I assume that wasn't necessarily the mainstay of the other players that you were with as well.
No, at my age group, very few. Some would do it. But I always looked at the guys that were older than me and the guys that who were still playing golf, and they were in their 60s, 70s, and I can name several in their 80s now, and they did a few things. They kept their weight under control, and secondly, they always did some form of exercise, and a lot of times it included light weights. And I think that's important. And I see, so I always thought, well, it works for these guys. Look, they're 20 years north of me, and they can still walk 18. And I intend to do it. I ride the bike and I walk. When I'm in Florida, I walk every day. I've never ridden a cart ever down there. I always walk. We're a caddy club, so it's good, and I enjoy the camaraderie. So. What do you figure we walk? 5 miles and 18 holes?
Yeah, I believe they typically say 5 to 7 miles or so.
So I do that, and then we walk. We have a little dog. My wife and I walk him about 5 miles, and then we each ride a Schwinn Airdyne in the morning. So at the end of the day, we're worn out. That's good. That's the way I like to be physically worn out at the end of the day, and then start up, get up, try it again.
Well, I think golf is so unique that, we can continue to play into our 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s. And, the ones that take care of their bodies are the ones that are going to be able to continue to enjoy the game. And the fact that you choose the Schwinn Airdyne, which is one of the nastiest machines on the planet, when you do those in sprint intervals on those things, that's
I do.
I love it, but I hate it.
Well, it's a good workout. I'm sweating. If I don't do the intervals, I don't think I get my heart rate up enough.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key components to being able to really get a quick and efficient workout in a short period of time. You mentioned looking up to some of the older guys and seeing what those guys are doing, and I know that you had a great relationship with the king of the game, Arnold Palmer. How did you initially first meet Arnie, and how did that friendship develop?
I met Arnold when I first qualified to play in the Masters in '96. So I'm in my office one day, and who was it? It may have been Tom Meeks. It was Meeks. called me and he said, have you thought about who you're going to play your practice rounds with? And I said, gosh, see, I haven't given it one thought. Heck, I was still working all the time. And in the winter, I worked. I had 5 kids. I was working. Anyway, I said, well, there's only really, Fuzzy's my friend. I grew up with him. That'd be great. But who was my hero when I was a kid was Arnold. He said, well, why don't you write him a letter? So anyway, so I let it, he put this thought in my mind, and I went a few days and I didn't do anything. And I went a few days and it just stayed in my mind. And I thought, oh, what the hell? It's a one-time shot for me. I'll write him a letter. And I did. I wrote him a letter and told him I was an old beat-up beer man who happened to get lucky and qualify for the Masters. And if he had the time, it'd be my greatest thrill to play a practice round with him. So anyway, one thing led to the next, and he saw Fuzzy and told Fuzzy, and Fuzzy, I'd reached out to him as well. So anyway, basically then Fuzzy kind of arranged it. So we played, my first practice round was with Fuzz, and I played Arnold and Jack.
Oh my gosh.
And Fuzzy's cracking jokes, and I can't hardly breathe. And I know we played him for some money, and I'm pretty sure we may have lost because it was my fault. I didn't play very well. And then the next day we played again with Arnold and with Watson, and then our friendship sort of went from there. And then 2 years later, I made it again, and by then we knew each other. And he said, well, we're going to play a practice round. And so we did probably each day and played in the par 3. And then they paired us together. I played the term with Arnold in first 2 rounds in 99.
Wow.
And by then they changed it to where I think in the first year they repaired you every day. But by 99, they did it like a normal tournament so that a person, no matter what you shot, would get a morning and an afternoon round. Because prior to that, if someone played really well, they'd never get to play in the morning. They'd be in the afternoon group every day. So then Arnold talked me into a lot of things, and he talked me out of a really good thing, and that was even thinking about turning pro when I turned 50. He called me to the office and had a little talk with me, and he told me, he said, you'll thank me probably 10 or 20 times before this is all over with for doing this, and I probably thanked him 40 or 50 times.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was it? What was it that he...
It was not for me, forget how I played. My game likely wasn't good enough, but that was not the point. The point was I had a good life. I had kids, and he knew the rigors of the road and all the traveling and all the things and how hard it is. And he knew my wife, and he said, you don't want that life, and not at your age. You know what? And he was right. At a young age, yeah, it's a great life. At my age, it was not for me. And not saying anything wrong with the people who do it. I'm just saying in my case, it would have been the wrong thing for me. I had kids at home. I had a really good business. And all I needed, I was going to do much better in every aspect, just staying and working and doing what I did. And that's what I did. So.
And at that point.
If you're listening, Arnold, if you're listening, I'm going to thank you for the 100th time. Thanks, pal. You're the best.
Now, were you kind of set on going pro at that time?
No.
Okay.
No. Never was set on it. I toyed with it, and Arnold got wind that I was thinking of it. And Holtgreave may have been the one to tell him. And I talked to Jimmy. It was never the right thing for Jimmy, and it would never been the right thing for me. And it just, some of the guys love it and they've done well and they've geared their lives and their business careers to do it. And it was an afterthought for me. I was no way, shape, or form did I never entertained it.
Gotcha.
yeah, it would have been the wrong thing for me to even try. And I wouldn't have done very good. Hell, they all beat me.
And I hear that you and Arnie also shared a passion together, which was flying. So
That's right.
And are you still flying to this day?
Yeah, believe it or not, I was up all morning doing maneuvers. Got about half dizzy. We did a lot of steep turns and stalls. We didn't spin, but multiple approaches. Basically, it's what I call, it wasn't official recurrent training. I have a friend who's a UPS pilot, flies the big stuff, and a very experienced pilot, and he runs me through the ringer, we call it. I put the foggles on, only look at the instrument gauges, and do multiple approaches, and a lot of steep turns, stalls, you name it. So that's what I did all morning, and hustled back here. So yeah, I try and keep my flying current, but I'm a safe pilot. I don't challenge the weather.
Did you and Arnie fly together at all?
Yeah, well, yes, but not in the cockpit. His you had to be checked out in, and mine. Mine. I think every time we talked about it, I think he thought it was way too little. Mine would have been a dinghy on his. But I was up with him a lot. He had a jump seat, we call it, in his Citation 10. I spent a lot of time in that with him.
Now, before we jumped on the recording here, you made mention of the fact that you don't know if there's ever been or ever will be another athlete like Arnie. And I'm curious to know if there's another lesson aside from, not turning pro, if there's another lesson that, you may have gleaned from Arnie that you feel is like one of the biggest ones that you got from him, and why you say that he's unlike any other athlete you've ever met or seen.
Well, I'll start with the fact that Arnold never wants you to patronize him. He doesn't expect, nor does he like it if you treat him any differently than any of the guys. He's a guy's guy. He comes into the locker room. He's the first guy to thank the doorman, to thank the locker room attendant. He's the first guy to tip them. He always takes his hat on. He's the first one to tip the waitress. He's the first one to reach to buy. He treats people he treats the people who cannot help him in any manner just as well as he treats those who could help him in any manner. And that was a great lesson for me. And he was always like that. And he had a way to engage you that if you were around him for just a few minutes, you felt like, you were his great friend. And he did that by always talking about the other person and very little about himself. You had to pry things out of Arnold. I said, I got to get a crowbar out and to try and get things out of him. But that was his manner. He was great. He was always the first one to greet the ladies. If there were two people, he acknowledged the women first. He had always had the best manners. He's an amazing guy. And the fact that every one of his signatures, he took his time, and every one is legible. He never refused an autograph request. I'd go in his office at both Latrobe and Bay Hill, and there'd be jam full of you name it, autograph requests for every charity, every person, any body. Most of the time, he had to pay the postage. Who knows how many thousands of dollars he spent because they didn't put a return envelope or something on it. But he did every one. If it was a rainy day, I'd go in there with him. He'd say, okay, let's set up the production line. If it was books he was doing, we'd open the page and just slide them. And each signature he would do at the same pace, and every one was legible. And he would sit there for hours and hours and hardly make a dent in it. And I don't know how he did it. I would hate to think how many he signed. There's no way of knowing. It'd be a huge number. I know that. but every one is legible. If you never saw his signature scribbled. I don't know that in today's world, with the athletes being patronized and things that they do, if they ever take their time to do like he did.
It was
some kind of guy.
It was amazing to see, some of those tributes that they've had of him on the Golf Channel, and just to find out those kinds of things, because Arnie was before my time really as a golf fan, and so I only know the stories that I've seen on TV since then, and the stories that I've heard from and been lucky enough to hear now from you and from Captain Holtgreave and some of those guys. But it is amazing to hear how personable he was, and just the things that he did because he appreciated the fans so much.
Yeah, he was an amazing man, and he was the best at it, and it came so natural. And we had a lot of fun times. My wife and I, and him and his wife were great friends. We went on a number of couple trips together, from boat trips to airplane trips. We just did a lot of things and had a lot of fun together. He was always fun to be with.
Speaking of lessons learned, I know that as the Walker Cup captain, you probably imparted a lot of lessons on these younger guys, but I'm curious to know what's something that you learned in your two stints as captain. What's something that you took away for yourself personally that you either learned about the game of golf or just yourself in general?
Well, I learned as captain, I learned that you have to start earlier in the week to get ready to win. I believe that you do not win by accident. I think you have to be prepared mentally to win. And the first team, we got over there, and it was my first time as captain, and most of the teams, it was all their first time to play, except for Nieberge. And we got caught up in the pomp and circumstance, and we expected that on Saturday morning we could be ready to play, and we weren't necessarily ready. And this team, we got ready, and we were ready to play on this team Tuesday. So we started a lot earlier. We just got ourselves ready to play earlier, and it showed.
And when you say ready to play, what exactly do you mean?
Well, mentally, we didn't get caught up so much, and I don't know. I think mentally we were all thinking about it more. We thought a lot more. I got a lot of input from the players, and we were a team, and we were a team on the first time, and it's hard to win abroad, Typically, the game is won on the greens. I read something that Tiger said about his observation of the President's Cup, and it's about putting. And he said that, and I agree. And I look back when we were beaten, and they beat us hard on the putting green. And this team that we won so overwhelmingly, we beat them badly on the putting green this time. You have to putt that ball, and so I try to get them ready to be good putters, to focus on the speed of the greens, and I allowed some more practice time this time for putting and the things that around the green. So anyway, it's an advantage, as you know, to play on your home soil, and it shows in our Walker Cup. Jimmy did the same as me. He lost over there and won here. I lost over there and won here. And Bobby Lewis, and I think Buddy squeaked out a small win over in Ireland. But there's an advantage when you're on your home turf.
I would imagine so. Over the past few years, we've seen some big names like Spieth and Thomas, and we mentioned a lot of guys that had played Walker Cup. Who are some guys from your teams that we're going to be hearing their name on tour and going to be seeing in the next couple of years that the listeners may not quite know their names yet?
Well, on my first team, Bryson DeChambeau has already won. And then going to the tour this year will be, they're going to the Web. No, Bo Hostler was hurt. Bo got his tour card, so he'll be on the big tour next year. And let's see, Robbie Shelton and he's fully exempt in the Web. Hunter Stewart is conditional exempt, and along with Jordan, and I'm missing somebody. I had 2 mids, Mike McCoy and Scott Harvey. And then on this team, the only one that's turned pro so far is Maverick McNeely, and this week he's his first professional event at the Safeway. And I expect he will do well. And then my younger guys who will be turning pro next year, probably Colin Marikawa, Doug Gim, Norman Zhang, Will Zalatoris, Cameron Champ, Scotty Scheffler. I expect they'll all do very well. I think this team, I'll have a lot of them go pretty quickly to the regular tour, and I think they'll make an impact right away.
Going to be fun to watch and see those names and have, I have them written down, see where they go and how quickly they rise through the ranks, because I'm sure just like many of the guys before, they're going to do very, very well. I got a couple closing questions for you here, Spider, that we ask everybody on the show. So we're going to just kind of wrap up here. First one is Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
Oh, Caddyshack.
I had a feeling there. What about if golf was like a baseball game where you get to pick a song when you step up to the plate? What if you got to pick a song when you're heading to the first tee box? What would your walk-up song be?
Happy by Pharrell Williams.
Nice. I love it. Did you use that in any of your prep work for the Walker Cup with the guys?
No, because I'm ignorant of how to get all that stuff. If I could, I would.
If you had a chance to play 18 holes of golf with anyone in the world, past, present, or even future, and you got to play anywhere that you wanted to play, where would it be, who would it be with, and why?
Well, I'd have to bring my pal back down from heaven, and it'd be Arnold, and I would play at Seminole, and he'd probably want to play Latrobe Bay Hill, so he'd likely win out, but any of those would be great. He may want to play Augusta, and that'd be great. If I could bring my pal back down for one more round, that's what I would do.
Well, Spider, last question here. I know that you have had a huge influence on the Walker Cup, and the Walker Cup has had a huge influence on you. What has you most excited about the state of the game right now, and especially amateur golf, as we move forward into the end of 2017 and into 2018?
I would say that the best thing that I could tell your listeners is that all the young guys that made this team and those large group who were competing and did not make the team, and it was a big group, and I got to know a lot of them. We probably tracked seriously, or I did, 40 players or better, and everyone to a T were good young men, well-mannered. I didn't have to tell them to take their hat off when they went indoors. They got it. I never saw one throw a fit. Of all the holes that I've watched these last 4 years, I never saw a player who I said, you know what, that kid's out with me. I can't take that the way he acts. Not one. They all acted. They were all great. The young guys, and that's a credit to their parents and the high school and the college coaches that are around the young players. So I would say the game is in good shape, and a lot of their teachers, they have teachers who will help them with those life skills as well. Certainly the ones that I know, they don't put up with it either. So the game's in good shape. A lot of really talented young men out there wanting to play this game for a living. It's pretty neat.
Well, we love to hear that, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on the show. It's been an honor getting to know you and getting to hear your story and the stories of Arnie and everything going on that you've helped out with the amateurs and the Walker Cup. So thanks again just for your time today, Spider.
Jeff, you're welcome. Thank you, and thanks to your listeners for loving this great game that we get so much joy out of.
We'll be in touch very soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to say a huge thanks to Spider Miller for taking the time to come on the show. It was such an honor to chat with him, get to know some of the history of the Walker Cup, and just hear some of the stories that he shared with Arnie. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Such a great guy, such a great ambassador for the game. If you want any more information on today's episode, just go to 18strong.com and you can search for episode number 160 or just type in Spider in the search bar and you're definitely going to get it. Once again, a huge thanks to our sponsors for the show, Scratch TV and Rad Roller. Be sure to go check out both of those platforms. And once again, if you're not part of our Facebook group, the 18 Strong Movement, we'd love to see you over there. All right, we're going to catch up with you again next week with another special guest. Be sure to train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong Podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.